Here's everything you need to know about one-step equations in 5 minutes. A one-step equation is an equation that can be solved in one step, and they usually look something like this, or this, or this. To solve it, you just need to isolate the variable. Take this equation, x plus 13 equals 27. To solve this equation, we need x to be the only variable on its side of the equal sign, and we need to remove plus 13 to do it. To do this, you'll need to apply an inverse operation. To remove plus 13, we simply need to use minus 13 to return this to 0. The next step to inverse operation is to apply it to the other side of the equal sign. So we'll also subtract 13 from 27. This leaves us with our final answer of x equals 14. If you'd like, you can plug in 14 to x in the original equation to check your answer. Since we now know that x is 14, we can replace x and get the equation 14 plus 13 equals 27. Adding 14 and 13 does in fact equal 27, so we know our answer is correct. What about a problem like b minus 3 equals negative 7? To apply an inverse operation to a subtraction problem, we'll instead isolate b by adding, since adding is the inverse or opposite of subtracting. Apply plus 3 to both sides, like so, and we should get our final answer of b equals negative 4. Again, feel free to plug in negative 4 to b in the original equation to check your work. So now we understand how to use addition and subtraction in inverse operation to solve one-step equations. The same principles will apply to multiplication and division as well. Take this equation 4x equals 20. To isolate x, we have to remove the 4. And since 4 is attached to x through multiplication, we'll need to use the inverse, division. We'll divide by 4 on the left, and the numerator and denominator cancels out, leaving x by itself. We have to divide 4 on the other side now, which gives us our final answer of x equals 5. How about a division problem? Let's solve the equation x over 4 equals 9. X is attached to 4 through division, so we'll need to use the inverse of division, which is multiplication. We multiply 4 by x over 4 to get 4x over 4, which cancels out and leaves us with x. Then we multiply 4 by 9 to get our final answer of x equals 36. Now let's look at a problem like this, 4 over 5m equals 28. How do we solve this equation when the variable is attached to a fraction? To cancel out this 4 over 5 and isolate the m, we'll need to multiply by 4 over 5's reciprocal. Remember, to find the reciprocal of any fraction, you just need to flip around the numerator and denominator. We'll put up some parentheses to keep things orderly, then we'll multiply the reciprocal on both sides. Since 5 over 4 is the reciprocal of 4 over 5, we'll connect the 5's and 4's to create a giant X, canceling them out. On the other side, we'll multiply 5 over 4 by 28. Remember, to multiply by a fraction, we'll put 28 over 1 here and multiply across. Now simplify our fraction, and we should have our final answer, m equals 35. By now we should have a pretty good grasp on one-step equations. Let's use the extra time we have to apply this to a word problem. Here's your friend Bob. In a conversation with Bob, he mentions someone named Eric, who Bob claims is massive, just an extremely tall individual. You ask Bob, how tall is this Eric guy? And Bob says, I don't know, but I must be 2/3 the guy's height. Well, you measure Bob and he comes out to 6 feet tall or 72 inches. How do we set up the problem when we know Bob's height is 72 inches, which is 2/3 the size of Eric? Pause here and try to come up with that equation yourself. Bob's height, 72 inches, should be equal to whatever Eric's height is times 2/3. So we'll put 72 on one side of the equal sign, and on the other we'll let e represent Eric's height, the variable we need to find, and multiply that by 2/3. From here, this should play out very similar to how we solved the previous equation. Since 2/3 is attached to our variable, we'll need to multiply its inverse on both sides. 3 over 2 and 2 over 3 cancel each other out. On the other side, we'll move 72 into a fraction over 1 and multiply across. This should leave us with our final answer of 108 equals E, revealing that Eric is 108 inches tall or 9 feet in size. At this point, you can go back to Bob and confront him for lying to you, which should give you some important insight into your friendship with Bob.